This is the Decarbonization Disrupters podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Cohen. This is episode 5 of our podcast, and I am very happy to welcome Omar Tabba. Omar is the Chief Product Officer for Brainbox AI. Brainbox's game-changing HVAC technology leverages cutting-edge AI to make building smarter and greener. Omar himself has over 20 years of expertise in energy efficiency, artificial intelligence, building automation, and has held various positions spanning technical, sales, and executive roles. Omar, welcome to the podcast.
Matthew, thank you for having me. Happy to be with you.
Yeah, no, I was very excited when you allowed us to have you on the podcast. I was thinking back in our relationship. You and I have known each other for a few years now. Obviously, we've done a lot of work with Brainbox, adding people to your team, which has been a great experience for us. And I was thinking back, the first time you and I met in person was the AHR Expo, January of 2020. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, the Chinese and the South Korean booths were empty, and it was like not as many people as I thought. And I'm thinking, man, this coronavirus thing I heard on the news, is it for real? Is it like a big deal? And little did we know how our lives would change very quickly. So I was glad I was able to catch you before I probably wouldn't have been able to. So that was a unique experience, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like kind of almost like a distant memory, not always pleasant, like you mentioned. We all went through some ups and downs during that like really high amount of uncertainty and certainly some challenges for a lot of folks. But at the same time, it's not that long ago, right, in terms of time. But I'm glad we're past it, and here we are today.
Yeah, and then the one bright spot about that whole year in 2020 was Brainbox hired, and so kept us busy. So we were able to bring on some good people. So I definitely want to talk about Brainbox and kind of your role now and all the technology you're dealing with. But because we haven't spoken in a while, and I want our audience to really understand more about you, I wanted to get into your career because knowing you, I know you're a building automation kind of lifer. Having done so many different roles, and I wanted to understand what drew you to the industry initially, and then, different roles that you've had between Distech, your own firm, and then beyond. What influenced those past experiences that can have shaped your career today?
Sure, happy to dive in. The story of how I got into this industry is a little bit of a funny one. Essentially, I had studied civil engineering in university, worked for a large general contractor. Enjoyed that for about a year and a half, and then they wanted to move me to a remote project kind of far away from Montreal, which is where I live, where I'm from. And I said, let me look for something that's a little bit more, urban, less remote travel. And I applied and kind of went to interview at Distech Controls, at the time, much smaller company. And the fellow who interviewed me is Martin Villeneuve, who's now the president of the company. And I didn't have any experience in this market, and he was, very polite about it. But he said as much. So, why should we hire you? It was a technical writing position at the time. So I said, look, I have a decent technical background. I have good language skills. I'm good with Google. Like I can make this happen. So he said, okay, we will give you a shot. And little did he know that, not only did I not know the business, I didn't even know what the acronym HVAC stood for. So there was a lot of learning, and they were very, very nice about it, right? So him and the rest of the team, kind of spent time with me and gave me ASHRAE books and manuals and all the necessary training that one would need in order to become effective. Now, the job itself was interesting because in order to write any user guides, you have to understand how the stuff works. So the control systems and the software and the sensors and the units that are being controlled and so on. So that was a great crash course in kind of HVAC and HVAC controls. I then kind of quickly evolved into doing technical support for customers, and then doing training for customers that are adopting the system. I then, I'd say about a year of being there, transitioned into a sales role. And I was a sales manager for Eastern North America and the Middle East. So big geography, had the opportunity to learn how the business works on the commercial side. So working with systems integrators, distributors, end users, engineering firms, and so on. So it was a wonderful experience. at this tech, and really was kind of formative in understanding the business there.
Great. And then, talk about your transition out of there into more of your high level roles, because obviously sales can propel you into a lot of things. Talk about your transition over time within the industry and how you ended up landing at Brainbox.
Sure, happy to help. So after this tech, I had an entrepreneurial thirst, and so I co-founded a network lighting control company that was manufacturing lighting controls for retrofit applications in commercial buildings. Venture-backed, Montreal-based, product made in Canada, and kind of grew that business up to a certain point. The company's commercialization plateaued after a certain period, and our investors maybe got a little bit of fatigue from our pivoting, and so decided to sell the company. The one of the buyers at the time, or potential buyers, I should say, was GE. So GE took a look. They ended up passing, but it was during this interaction that we ended up kind of connecting and establishing a relationship. And they were, at the time, GE was going through its own evolution, and they said, "Hey, we're creating a new digital business for our company called Current, and we'd like you to lead our solutions engineering team." So I said, "Okay, let's take a look." I was unattached to the transaction of the startup, so I said, "You know what? Let's give this a shot." So I had, as you can probably tell, worked at let's say, a small and medium-sized company or startup and scale-up. Had never worked at a multinational. So it was a very eye-opening and informative experience. I loved it. It was essentially, how do you actually run a 300,000 person company? What kind of processes, what kind of people, what kind of tools exist? And then also, was eye-opening was the degree of access and scale some of these companies have across the world. So had a lot of fun there. That was a 4-year stint. And then Brainbox came knocking in, I want to say, summer of 2019. So summer of 2019, I got the call and spent time with the team here. And after looking a little bit under the hood, said, "You know what, this is a great opportunity. Let's give it a shot." And it's been almost 5 years since.
Yeah, and that's a good tenure, and I know you're going to keep it going. I'm always curious talking to people at your level who kind of make that leap from kind of a pretty stable position into a startup, and especially at Brainbox at the time was definitely smaller and kind of up and coming. What was the deciding factor that made you want to make that leap and take that advantage of and joining a startup like that?
Sure. So there's a variety of factors. So separate from Brainbox, during my time at GE, so I live in Montreal. Montreal is one of the global hubs of AI. So when you live here, you hear a lot about AI in the media. And so at some point in my mind, I was like, this AI thing, I need to understand more. So I did a certificate with, it's called deeplearning.ai. You can look it up. It's Andrew Ng's deep learning program. And so that was really eye-opening to help me understand the technology. Once I understood the technology, I right away realized that there's a fit for this technology in our industry. But I kind of left it at that, right? I was busy, working at GE and all this stuff. And so it kind of just registered in my mind, man, we have a lot of data in these buildings. These BMS systems are generating all this data. We're not doing something with it. It could be used in order to do things like this. And once that opportunity with Brainbox came along, so right away I remembered that moment, right? That light bulb moment, which is, there is something to be done with AI in our industry. There's a lot of data and so on, a lot of inefficiency. And then the assessment has to come is this the right vehicle to explore it, right? So is this the right team of people, the right shareholders and investor profile, the right vision and plan? So that's what we were kind of looking at the time. And I'm very happy that I made that decision. I wouldn't look back.
No, it's definitely a good decision. It has been a joy for us to kind of take that journey with you a little bit and add to your team. And I was interested in hearing your perspective on Brainbox's technology, and I think it's a really interesting story. I won't spoil. I'll let you do it. How Brainbox's technology came to be, kind of its roots, And then I'd love to get, your understanding of, what Brainbox is bringing to the table, and what it's doing today, and how it's leveraging AI to really decarbonize the built environment.
Yeah. So the origin story, right? So the origin story of Brainbox is a good one. The Our co-founder and CTO Jean Simon is also a kind of an expert in energy efficiency, and in a prior life, before founding Brainbox in 2017, he had the opportunity to ride in one of the early prototype self-driving cars in California. And so, he gets in, the steering wheel is moving by itself, the pedals, etc. And his light bulb moment was, my goodness, if this technology is good enough to drive a car, in cars, as we know, are in a very dynamic environment with people and bicycles and so on, other cars, it's certainly good enough to drive, a rooftop unit or a building automation or mechanical system. And so with that thought in mind, he started the company in 2017, got a group of engineers together, and they started developing essentially in a kind of stealth mode what was the early prototype of the Brainbox solution. And the idea was, we want an autonomous AI-driven solution that can dynamically modulate and optimize buildings from the cloud. And we want to overcome the kind of inevitable building drift that happens once buildings are commissioned and delivered. Over time, even the most efficient buildings will drift and kind of go away from their commissioned state. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to deliver an AI-driven continuous commissioning and optimization tool. And fast forward to today, our technology is in over 15,000 buildings all around the world, many different types of buildings, from retail to office to mall, and many other types of verticals. We're fortunate to have many large end users that are our customers. We also have OEM customers, for example, like Train and ABB, that private label our solution under their brand. So yeah, that's kind of the synopsis of how Brainbox came to be.
Yeah, I love the story. Whenever I talk to candidates about it, I think my pitch has always been, Brainbox hot wired autonomous vehicle technology into buildings. So people have really enjoyed kind of that story. I wanted to understand, because you've been in the industry for a long time, and I'm always interested to understand your perspective on how we can really highlight the need for greater awareness in curbing carbon emissions for the built environment, because I think it's a pretty stable industry, but I think there's still a building footprint out there that really hasn't taken full advantage of the technology that's available. So what can we do as an industry to really push that forward, and show the greater economy that building efficiency really is the cheapest fuel, and it can really help curb the emissions that we need.
Yeah, it's an important point that you're raising, in the sense that the company is obviously using a lot of AI tools, like we said, but that's a how, right? The question is why. Why are we doing what we're doing? So Brainbox's mission is to save the planet with AI, and that's reflected in how we've been deploying our technology into the built environment. So the problem that we're trying to solve is a big one, and that is that buildings are about 40% of global emissions, and unfortunately, they're inefficient. So there's I would say, a well-known U.S. Department of Energy statistic, which is that roughly 30% of the energy in a standard commercial building in the United States is wasted. It's a big number, right? When you think about that global scale and the impact that it can have on emissions. And to your point, the best kind of emissions are those that never occur, essentially, right? So why have to fix a problem that doesn't need to exist to begin with? So using technology to reduce emissions is a critical one, and our solution is unique in the market because it doesn't require capex. Right? You don't have to go and retrofit the building with a new envelope or new equipment. It's literally better logic, better math that is basically running the building with the same comfort constraints, by the way, just reducing the emissions of the building. And the results are dramatic. So when we deploy our technology in a building, typically we're seeing anywhere from 10 to 25% reduction in the HVAC energy consumption of that building with not a screw turned in that building. So it's something to think about when we look at all these buildings around us. The power for this technology to help us essentially live a more sustainable life and have a more sustainable society.
Is there, I mean, everyone I talk to, especially on the podcast lately, has always said there's no silver bullet in carbon emissions, and especially in the built environment, we have to do a little bit of everything. Is that really true? I mean, is there a part of the building, whether it's the rooftop unit, whether it's the lighting system, whether it's sensors for room control? I mean, is there one thing that building owners should really focus on first, or is it really about putting every piece of technology in the building at once? To really leverage, what's out there as far as technology.
Yeah, it's a topic that comes up a lot on our end as well, and that is there's this duality, right? There's a duality between the physical state of the asset, whether it's the HVAC unit or the control system or the envelope, like you said, and that physical state has a certain it has implications, right? So if I have, for example, a rooftop unit with a certain SEER rating that's more or less efficient, that's a constraint that is just real. That being said, if I'm running this unit 24 hours a day in override, as opposed to 12 hours a day based on my actual need, then that's also a control system constraint that is unnecessarily consuming energy and emissions. So essentially, you can have one of two things that is suboptimal: either the physical state of the asset or the sequence of operation of the asset. What we're doing is we're trying to address both. So we're bringing technology to autonomously modulate the equipment to fix the soft issues. So your schedules, your set points, your sequences of operation. And those are done autonomously from the cloud, like we mentioned. But what about if I have a compressor that needs replacing or a dirty fan coil? AI is not going to fix that. Somebody needs to go to the site. But what data can do is data and AI can inform how we fix it, when we fix it, and what priority and order do we give to it. So our tools, for example, are able to identify faults in equipment and also do functional performance testing so that we inform the planned maintenance strategy of the owner. Say, okay, unit number 12, unit number 13 are the ones that need servicing. Go focus on those, and here are the faults that are associated with them. And by using technology in this way, you're able to address both of those things.
It's very cool technology. I wanted to get your thoughts on AI generally within not just our industry, but kind of how we're utilizing it as an economy. Because what I hear half the time is AI is here, it's going to change all of our lives, and we're not going back, and it's going to be revolutionary. And then the other side, I hear quite a bit from the same very smart people: we don't have enough data centers, we don't have enough power to generate the full, be able to unleash AI. From your perspective and being immersed in the last few years, how far are we from fully unleashing it, and what's holding it back from getting the full power of AI, especially within the built environment?
It's an important question as well, in the sense that we have yet, as a society, let's say, so speaking broadly, we haven't yet reached that limit where we try to deploy, let's say, a software in a data center, and the data center operator says, "Sorry, I can't." Right. So far, the data center providers and infrastructure providers have been able to keep up with demand. That being said, I think everybody agrees that we're forecasting not too distant future that the rate of adoption is so high that we may have to start saying no to some applications, or even have to choose which applications to run. And so that's where this race to build data centers comes from, and acquiring the energy that is needed to run the data centers and so on. I think the Brainbox application, and those, it's not just Brainbox, there are other companies in the market that leverage data in order to serve the built environment. We're in a relatively lucky and privileged position because we're using data that is very, very small in quantum, so temperature values and so on. It's not a YouTube video. It's not an image. So what we're transmitting back and forth is very small, yet the impact of the data manipulation and control that we're doing is enormous at a global scale. So right away we rise to kind of to the top as it relates to kind of the return on investment, at least from a decarbonization perspective. You're investing a little bit of energy in connecting to the buildings and modulating them in real time and looking at weather forecasts, but you're saving all of this energy, the utility costs, the emissions that come with it. So we're comfortable that we're in a good space.
So now that you're in a good space, I mean, give us a hint or an idea of kind of what's next, not just for Brainbox, but for I think AI and data-driven solutions within energy efficiency generally. I mean, is it we getting to the point where there's more different types of data points that we haven't been able to leverage, or I guess what's generally next in kind of those data AI-driven solutions?
Yeah, the most exciting and most recent addition to our product suite is ARIA. So if you go on our website or on our social media, you'll see some of the content there. So ARIA is the world's leading virtual building assistant. We are super excited by the reaction that we've gotten from the market. So a lot of early adoption. We just announced it a couple of months ago. And what ARIA can do is ARIA is a cloud-based application that has access to all of the information and plumbing, let's say, the connectivity to the buildings that we have. And ARIA also leverages LLM technology to enable users to interact in a completely new way with their building. Essentially, our customers can now talk to their building. ARIA you can chat with it via text, or you can speak to it just using your voice, and it can respond either with text or voice. It speaks 29 different languages. Remember, we're a global company, so we have customers all over the place, and so it's important to recognize those linguistic needs. And ARIA does many things, so it's sometimes it's important to summarize kind of what it can do. I would say 3 big buckets of things. So, and imagine, I'm talking to ARIA. So, hey, ARIA, what's the temperature in my store in Boston? Oh, well, the temperature is 75. So, hey, Arya, why was there a hot call in my store in Boston last Tuesday afternoon? So, first one is fetch me the data. So what is the temperature? Second one is analyze the data for me. And the third one is do things on my behalf. So, hey, Arya, put all my Boston stores into unoccupied mode because it's a snow day in Boston and we don't want to incur any unnecessary energy costs. And this capability is game-changing because it democratizes access to data and knowledge. So gone are the days when you have to hunt in CSV files and PDFs, or you have to have a virtual or a VPN login to this control system or that. So technicians now can just ask the building whatever it is that they want. And ARIA also has the ability to access our asset information, so it knows the make, model, serial number. We train it on the user guides or equipment operations guides of the units that are installed. So now technicians can query basically the what type of fan belt do I need, what type of filter, etc. So all of this knowledge that again is siloed in many different places just becomes accessible via natural human conversation.
So you can even ask ARIA something like, I mean, for example, when was the last time this fan coil was replaced? And it would have an archive and know this technician was there on this day at this time, and kind of give an idea of, and could it even tell you, could it give recommendations? Could it say, I think this is the right time for this particular part to be replaced, maintenance, hey, we haven't seen this particular piece of equipment be serviced in X amount of time. Could it provide that sort of proactive generative AI?
So I was actually just working on something with ARIA, and just kind of trying to ask it different things. And I asked about a specific store. The store has 10 units. Only one of them has a high temperature in one of the zones, so 77 degrees. So I said, hey, ARIA, is there an issue in this store? Right. So it proactively printed out all of the space temperatures of the 10 rooftop units. It said rooftop unit number 3 is high. It's at 77 degrees. And then I said, okay, well, why do you think that is? it said, well, this set point is 68, but it's at 77. Cool stage 1 is on, but cool stage 2 is not. It should be on because it's so far from its set point. It said maybe this zone is exposed to the sun early in the morning, so maybe it's getting warmer first. So it made a series of recommendations that a technician could follow in order to troubleshoot what is causing that warm temperature. Now, imagine you're a facilities professional, whether, let's say, you work for that building owner or otherwise, or you're a service company. You get these calls. We all get these calls. This tool allows us to collapse the time that is required to do the triaging and the investigation that we need to do in order to give our stakeholders the answer. Well, hold on, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, let me log into the system and I'll tell you, give me 1 second. Oh, which building are you again? Oh, it's this one. Oh, yes, you're right. Right. So this time is a very valuable commodity, as we all know, right? And I think it has meaningful impact on productivity, on customer satisfaction, on asset downtime and comfort. So we're really, really excited about it. And the more data we give it, the more powerful it becomes in terms of serving the stakeholders.
And I bet it probably gives them an education too, if they're not as well versed technically in, the building equipment that they have. They now can take some ownership of that maintenance responsibility, and they have a tool now, right? And so I think that's something that we don't see. I the way you describe it, it's almost, generative AI is not something that we normally see in the built environment space, but you're leveraging it, which is great. So no, I mean, it's really awesome technology. And again, working with you last couple of years has been awesome, and I'm excited to where Brainbox is going to go here in the near future. In closing, I'd love to give an opportunity. I mean, you talked about ARIA and all the things that it's doing, but anything else going on with Brainbox as of late, or what's coming up that our audience should know that they should get excited about?
So we have a full roadmap, so expect to see a lot more releases from us over the next few months that are going to be either on our social media or on our website. You can, if you'd like to follow us, please go to our website. So it's www.brainboxai.com. And we also have social media pages on LinkedIn and otherwise. We also have some nice YouTube videos. I should give a shout out to our marketing team. So if you go to our YouTube channel, Brainbox AI, you're going to see some ARIA videos that are really doing a good job in explaining kind of where ARIA fits in and how it can be used by different stakeholders, whether technicians, facility managers, or even sustainability professionals. So check those out.
Great. And what we'll do, we'll add that YouTube channel to the bio in our YouTube video for this. So again, Omar Tabba, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope to see you soon at the next trade show that we go to. We'll make a time to see each other. And so again, thank you for taking the time to do this. It's really enlightening. So this is the Decarbonization Disruptors podcast, and we'll see you next time.